The Wellington Lions overcame its Jade Stadium hoodoo on Friday night as they beat Canterbury 27-6. Leading 6-3 at half-time, Wellington scored 3 converted tries to Canterbury's single penalty in the second half. This pushes Wellington closer to a semi-final spot, but with North Harbour getting the bonus point from their game yesterday, Wellington still remain in 5th place on the table, 1 point behind 3rd and 4th places. This means the game against Otago on Sunday now becomes a do-or-die match that Wellington must take maximum points from to make the semi-finals. Wellington's Athletic Park, the home of New Zealand rugby for 104 seasons. Well, it's pretty much today as most people will remember it. It's wet and it's cold. The only thing missing, of course, is the Wellington wind. But come Sunday, well, the atmosphere will be here, the warmth, the spirit of rugby as we farewell Athletic Park. This is the social room underneath the #1 stand at Athletic Park, a room of great significance, especially in the days before television, when the All Black team used to be announced from this room. Many a young man eager for his All Black aspirations sat by the radio as the selectors made their announcements from this very room. Around me is a myriad of great memorabilia. We'll take a look at some of that memorabilia with groundsman John Jennings.
The first international referee to referee in New Zealand, to referee a test in New Zealand, was John West, the Irishman. The week before the test, he actually came up and refereed a game on Athletic Park, just a club game. We had a function in this room afterwards, and we were all taken up in little groups to meet this famous referee. Now, one of the teams in this game was Marist St Pat's, and there was a Marist St Pat's supporter in the group that I was in when we went up to meet John West. The first thing that he did was question one of John West's decisions. Now, John West says, "You know what you want to do?" And this guy says, "What?" And he says, "You should do what we do in Ireland." He says, "You know the posts that hold the roof up and the stand?" He says, "We cut 4 feet out of all of them." And then he said, "Everybody can see what goes on during a game."
Welcome back. Tonight, of course, the focus of our game is a tribute to Athletic Park. A place of many memories for a lot of people and some great rugby action over the years. I took the time out earlier this week to catch up with Chief Executive of Wellington Rugby Union, David White, and the coach of the Wellington Lions, Graham Murray, to check out what they had to say and what their thoughts were coming up to the final official match at Wellington's Athletic Park. With David White, Chief Executive Officer of Wellington Rugby Union, and we're talking about the farewell to Athletic Park. David, mixed emotions about Sunday's game.
Yeah, sure. The park has been fantastic over the last 104 years, and a lot of memories for Wellingtonians and also All Blacks, I guess, and club rugby players. But it is time to move on. We've got a fantastic new facility a couple of kilometres up the road, the Westpac Trust Stadium, and the ground is getting a little bit old and tired, so it's time to move on.
David, your favourite memory of Athletic Park? Everybody has one.
Yeah, I've only been there. This is my 3rd year in the job with Wellington, and I'm not a Wellingtonian, but I guess my favourite memory is 1997, the last round robin game of Super 12, when we had a capacity crowd for the ACT Brumbies game. Was sold out 4 days before the game started, which, according to Keith Quinn, is one of the only times that the venue has been sold out other than a test match. So that was fantastic. It was a magnificent crowd.
And your aspirations for next year with the new stadium?
Not my personal aspirations, but for Wellington Rugby, it's going to be we're going to benefit and financially. There's a lot more covered seats. There's 24,000 covered seats, so the yield is a lot higher than at the park. We believe that we're going to tap into a whole new market. We know for a fact that a large number of corporates and people don't go to the park because of the limited and I guess uncomfortable facilities for the corporate market. So we will benefit in those terms. So we're really looking forward to moving on. But like you said before, we have got mixed emotions.
And your predictions for Sunday's game?
I never make any predictions. You can talk to the coach about that. We just want a great crowd to come along and support Wellington, support the old park, and have a lot of fun.
David White, thank you. Graham Murray is coach of the current Wellington team. What's your feelings on Sunday's game?
I guess first and foremost it's very much worrying about the game and the fact that we need to go out there and put on a very good performance and go for the win. And I think obviously that single game focus is pretty much in my mind also one of looking back and remembering the games I played there, and just a little bit of sadness and I suppose excitement also at knowing that the new stadium will be in action next year.
What was your favourite memory of Athletic Park?
I think my favourite memory probably goes back to first game there, I think, as a schoolboy playing for the Centurions Colts, playing there for New Zealand under-23 against Romania, I think, in 1975, and I was lucky enough to score a couple of tries, and obviously my first game for Wellington. There's lots of memories there. I think learning about how to play in the wind, I suppose, that's a good part of playing at Athletic Park, but lots of memories.
Yes, the cold, the wet and the wind is always a fond memory of Athletic Park, but it's also provided some great days of rugby as well. You've led the All Blacks at Athletic Park. What sort of special feeling is that? Yeah,
I think it's like any big game. You enjoy getting out there playing for the All Blacks. We actually lost. I think I only played one test at Athletic Park against Australia and we lost, so that wasn't a great feeling, but certainly it was Athletic Park was one of those parks which had a good atmosphere, good environment, crowds reasonably close, and I think also just the history and the tradition of the place too. The great games that have gone before, and I think the last test I watched there before getting the All Blacks against the Lions, you're sitting in the crowd, and the next week you're actually out there playing for the All Blacks. So that has certainly lots of memories in that area.
And your predictions for Sunday?
I just think our guys will be very focused and that they'll do the best they can, and hopefully that'll be enough to come off with a good win.
And do you think the crowd will do justice to both the team and the park?
I'm sure there'll be a great crowd there. Yeah, it'll be a great day. As long as they don't dig up too much of that ground, there's already a little bit gone, I believe.
Indeed there is. Graham Murray, all the best for Sunday, and thank you very much. Graham, I've got to ask the first question. 174 games. Do you see the modern game anybody being able to match that record?
Well, unfortunately, I think with the current lot of guys there at the moment, they're only playing 11 games, possibly 11 games a year, or one or two more, and I don't think, I hope, that my record stays.
Now, you also alluded to me earlier that that 174 times for Wellington isn't exactly true. There was a bit of a criteria before you actually qualified for a Wellington game, but under the modern game they might have qualified.
Well, in the early days, if you played what was regarded as a second division team, so on, the games that account as up there on the board is 174 first class games for Wellington. But if you were playing Manawatu or Wairarapa Bush in those days back in the early 60s, they weren't counted as a first class fixture, and so I don't think they actually went on the record at that stage.
And how many of those roughly do you think you would have played over and above?
Well, I think that if I, over the years, I had a few of those, I think I got probably a little bit closer to around 190 odd games.
Now, during the 60s, you also played for the All Blacks. Yeah. How many games did you play at the park in the black jersey?
Well, unfortunately, I was one of these All Blacks that never played a game at home in New Zealand. I played 5 tests, but they're all overseas. And
do you feel kind of cheated not being able to get that home game, or?
I do feel a little bit sad about it, and the fact that I would have loved to play represent the country at home. But as you say, that's all part and parcel of the sport, and obviously I was terribly proud to represent New Zealand at any stage.
Indeed, as anybody would. Your favourite memory of Athletic Park? It would be hard to choose one, I suppose.
Well, I just listening to Graham on there a few moments ago, and I think I have obviously memories relate to games that played, and one of them was always going to be is 1965 beating the Springboks on the park for Wellington. I also think back that I think I was probably 10, I think, that I actually played in a 7-a-side final competition at Athletic Park in 1956, curtain raise of the Springboks. So it sort of goes back a little bit along those ways, but we're just listening to Graham a few minutes ago. One thing that did come to mind, and it's about things and incidents that happen on the park, and one was doing a television commentary on the park against the Springboks when there was a particular biting incident of someone's ear on the park. And one thing that really amazed me about that was Keith Quinn was actually doing the commentary, and he picked that up, watched it through the camera as it happened. And it was, obviously when these things happen, you go back to replays and it showed again. But he actually spotted it the moment it actually happened, and I think that was actually quite awesome from the point of view of his expertise in calling the game.
I think it's another thing that's also synonymous with Athletic Park is the figure of Keith Quinn wandering around before the matches and soaking up the atmosphere, and he's just as much as part of Athletic Park as the All Blacks and the Wellington Lions.
Yeah, no, it's great because I've got a great affinity for Quinny because of the fact that he gave me a try at Twickenham in 1967, which I actually didn't get. But at least I try and claim that. But, there's just so many. I loved playing on Athletic Park in comparison with a lot of the major grounds around New Zealand through the 60s. I always used to think playing at Hara was also a great little ground because it was always had a tremendous service. But Athletic Park really had something going for it, and I think back, it's not so, as you say, not the atmosphere there. It was always been perfect. We've had John Jennings interviewed there tonight, and he probably, as a groundsman, has been superb because the surface on Athletic Park over the last 20 years has been absolutely magnificent.
It's always been presented as a picture.
And I always remember listening one night where little things stick in your throat, where as Murray Deaker was talking on the radio, and he was talking about Athletic Park and saying that was built the wrong way round. It should be running east-west, not north-south, because of the wind. But I always thought, well, hang on. If you ask any rugby player, would they rather play into it or with it, or playing with a cross field all the time? No one wants a cross field. They'd rather play into it or behind it. So.
Exactly. And the Wellington wind has been a feature over many years. I remember one of my fondest memories was watching Hugo Porter on the wrong side of halfway kicking into a southerly. Everybody thinking, well, what sort of a clown is this? He doesn't know. And he actually slotted it, and every man in the audience just silence immediately. It is a feature of the Wellington game, the wind. And as a player, how did you deal with that?
I think we had a lot of set systems. A lot of the times they were taking the wind. Most times, most teams in a hard northerly would always take the wind to try and get some points up at half, then work it back. Once again, a lot of the time in light southerlies, I would always love to play into a light southerly in the first half, because if you could get a little bit of if you could get points up in the first half, because Athletic Park sort of runs a little bit up and downhill. A bit of a slope in it, but a lot of the captains, I think, went onto the park, and if there's a light southerly blowing, would say, right, well, let's play into it. We'll try and put points up, because most times the ball is easier to pass and handle into a light breeze than it is with a breeze coming behind you, and so often these tactics used to pay off, and it was to turn around with a little bit of breeze behind you, and it really, you'd put the opposition, if you were in front at that time, behind the 8 ball.
For sure.
But it was always that thought up the park, and once again with current rules, it's far more difficult, because if you kick the ball dead or in touch and goal, you might be going back to a scrum on your own 22.
Excellent. Well, that's all we've got time for tonight on that one. We're all wishing that Wellington take on Otago and win on Sunday as a grand finale to Athletic Park. Athletic Park brings out the best in everybody, and with me here is Amanda and Alison Ross, and they're collecting today for the Mary Potter Hospice. Why did you pick today to come to Athletic Park?
Oh, I thought it was as good a day as any, Scott. Probably the best day ever. We've been big supporters of the Lions, and the Lions have really got in behind Mary Potter Hospice this year. We've had our annual appeal this week, and we've had Lions out collecting on the streets on Friday, and they've been up to the hospice to visit the patients, and they very kindly said, come on in and collect from the crowd. Being the last, well, it might not be the last game, but if it is, we thought it would be quite nice for the hospice to give it a fitting farewell.
That's excellent. Now, your predictions for the game?
Well, Wellington are definitely going to win. How can they lose?
Exactly. And Amanda, who do you think is going to win?
Wellington.
The Vodafone Wellington Lions, for the final time of the millennium, for the final time in the 103-year history, you know what to do.
How did the boys feel out there after the first half?
Oh, not too flash. We were pretty flat. We're in danger of letting the occasion get to us a bit, and we didn't really play any football, but we felt 13 points. Probably that we could peg that back with the use of the wind, and we used it pretty effectively.
And a nice way to start the second half.
Yeah, I thought it was time to put my hand up and try and do something for the boys, so it was nice.
And semi-final spot in the bag. How do you feel?
Oh, terrific. I think the 4 tries was important too, that sends us to Hamilton rather than Auckland, so that was nice.
Indeed, a big benefit going up there. You had a close game with Waikato. Just immediately, it's probably not the right thing to ask, but how do you think you'll go against them?
We're confident. They weren't really very impressive on Friday night, but we realised they probably didn't have a lot to play for in that game. They were probably looking ahead to the semi, and they'll be very difficult to bowl, given that they've already beaten us once this year.
Jason, all the best. Thanks very much. Fleming, big day for you today. Nice try work. The whole team clicked well in the second half. What was your personal feelings on the game?
It was good to win. First time for Wellington in the semi-finals, and we had a big task ahead of us in the second half, and we took it.
And close call in Waikato a few weeks ago. The boys have been working really well over the last few weeks. Do you think you've got enough to turn it around and win it?
Well, that game a couple of weeks ago gave us a lot of confidence, and that's why I think we've played so well in the last couple of weeks, and hopefully we can just pick it up another step and move on next week. Yeah.
Well, here's for another Tri-Fest next week, Wellington's favour. Cheers.
Cheers,
Pretty satisfying day, 80 minutes of great rugby, 4,000 autographs. How are you feeling?
Yeah, very pleased, mate, very pleased. You know, we knew it was going to be real tough with the playing into the wind, and they capitalised on a lot of our mistakes at the beginning. But very pleasing second half, very pleasing.
Another try-feast in the second half. Great way to start that second half, nice move.
Yeah, you know, we talked about it at half-time that if we were going to do anything, we were going to do it early in the second half, and we had to look on the occasion and the passion that the guys have been playing with, and we had to dig a bit deeper in the second half, and the guys definitely done that, which was really cool.
Now, you had a close game in Waikato a few weeks ago. You're up against them next week. The boys have improved immensely over the last 4 weeks. Have they got enough to take it?
Well, I think first things first, we've got to go up there and learn from our mistakes from the first game. And I believe we can. And on the day, how well we prepare. You know, I'm not going to say anything else, give them motivation for nothing. You know, we've got to do it ourselves. And
For sure. Norm Hewitt, I wish you and the team all the best. Thanks for a great game.
thanks, mate.